Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining the May 2025 CAD training. This month's topic is on vehicle tracking and what's new in Civil 3D 2026. Just a few housekeeping things as we get started. There are PDFs and a sample CAD file located at the path shown on your screen on the S drive. Please feel free to copy any of those files for your use. The CAD file is read-only, so if you open it, it's going to prompt you to do a save as, or you can copy it onto your N drive, whatever's easier for you. The video, per normal, is going to be posted to YouTube, and if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or throw it in the chat. I have it open on another window, so I'm going to try to keep track of that, but I might miss it. So if I do, speak up. So I guess with that, we'll get it started. A few things kind of unrelated to this month's topic that have come up recently. John Hauser found this command, AECC purge ACANOD objects. If you type AECC purge, the rest should autofill within Civil 3D. But basically what this command should do is help speed up some of your old drawings, especially old MDs that were created before 2018. There's an issue where some of those files of that age have old objects in them that seem to kind of multiply themselves in the background and make your file size really big and bog things down, even though they're not really doing anything. So if you have any drawings that kind of fit into that category, give it a shot and see if it helps. I've tried it on a few older drawings and it definitely made the file size smaller. I haven't had any that were really, really slow to try it on yet, but maybe someone will, so give it a shot. Another thing that's come up in the last couple weeks, there's a known bug in Civil 3D 2026 that won't allow your near map images to import in the correct location and scale. For now, there is no fix for it, so you can import your images in 2025, and then if you still want to work within 2026, all you need to do is close out of 2025, reopen the file in 26, and it'll be in the right place because that's the way you saved it. So that's the workaround for that. So with that, let's get going on some vehicle tracking stuff. So for anyone who's never experienced vehicle tracking or had an opportunity to try it out, vehicle tracking is a suite of tools that are added as a part of Civil 3D via an add-on. These tools give us the ability to create vehicle turning paths for a wide variety of design vehicles, depending on what your site requires. It also allows us to create parking lots and create roundabouts. Those two tools we don't really use as of now, but maybe in the future could be something that's useful to us. So right now we primarily use vehicle tracking for its turning movements, and we use them in a variety of ways. Sometimes we're required to show them on our plans, usually to show that the loading areas or refuse areas can work. Sometimes we also have to do standalone exhibits showing movements for different vehicles. We've been doing them lately a lot for traffic impact studies and then providing them to our traffic consultant. And then a lot of times we use it just as a design check during the process of laying out the site to make sure whatever delivery vehicle or a fire truck or a garbage truck or whatever needs to make it through the site is able to do so. And then maybe it doesn't actually end up on a plan, but it's a good way for us to make sure our layouts are good. So there are a few components that we're going to go through before we get into CAD and kind of demonstrate it. I figured it was important to give a little bit of background because this is kind of a different topic compared to some of our normal just command-based or more design topic-based trainings. There's a lot of intricacies to the way vehicle tracking works, and there's tons of options, and we're just kind of going to touch the surface of it, but it should be enough that everyone can use it, hopefully, or at least feel confident enough to give it a shot. So the Vehicle Library Explorer is a listing of all of the design vehicles you have the ability to use to make movement paths. We have a document on our Google Drive, the PTE project standards, that contains a lot of our most commonly used ones, but I would say there's easily hundreds of them available for pretty much anything. So the most common ones we use, I broke it down into kind of categories. So our delivery vehicles, we're most commonly using a WB62, but sometimes we're asked to use WB50s for tractor trailers. And then for box trucks, they are SU 40 and 30. That's a 40-foot long and 30-foot long box truck. So I threw this in here. We used to always use WB67s for our tractor trailer turning movements, and sometimes we're still required to do that, or it's still a good idea to at least try it to be conservative. But technically, a WB67 vehicle isn't legal to be on the road in Pennsylvania, except for some really specific circumstances that probably would not happen at our sites. I think there's 2 or 3. One of them is a NASCAR hauler, and I don't think we have too many of those going through our sites. So just as an example, WB62 is a little more realistic to use whenever possible. Garbage trucks, we have the Mack TerraPro cab over truck. It's a front load garbage truck. It closely models State College Borough's garbage truck and is pretty common amongst other haulers. You see really similar ones, so it's a pretty good vehicle to use. We may also add some vehicles in the future for roll-off containers for refuse. They're starting to be used on large buildings that have trash compactors, mainly downtown, or we've used it on Top Trees West. Right now, in place of the specific design vehicle, we can use box trucks. They're pretty similar to the roll-off type vehicles. An SU30 or an SU40 would work for this. Fire trucks, there are 2 that I use pretty regularly. The 2016 Pierce Velocity Aerial is the same model of fire truck as the Alpha Fire Company Truck 5.1 that operates out of the borough, and then the E1 HP100 Aerial is one of their other trucks. These are some of their bigger trucks, so they're pretty safe for us to use as our design vehicles for layout. And they're some of the bigger ones in our area, period. So even for sites that are outside of their service area, they're pretty good design vehicles to use. And then CATA buses, these are new vehicles. These are custom design vehicles created by Pantera using information we got from CATA. There are 3 of them. There's the 40-foot tandem axle bus, the 40-foot single axle, and then the articulated bus. Both of the 40-axle buses are sized to also take into consideration if they have the bike rack folded down, which sits at the front of the bus. So now I'm going to show you, vehicle tracking reports. These are basically vehicle trackings equivalent to Civil 3D styles. So they call them reports, but really what it is controlling what is displayed on plan view for your movement. So that would include whether you're showing the body outlines, whether you're showing just the outline of where the wheels are traveling versus if the body overhangs the front when it goes around turns, you can control how that looks. Lately, I've been doing a lot, and I've seen other people doing movements that print in color, especially since a lot of the time we're using them for exhibits. I've been using red in forward directions and then blue whenever it's in reverse. And then on those exhibits, I throw a note that indicates that so someone looking at it can easily tell if the vehicle is backing up or moving forward. This setting can be made a default, but it has to be done on everyone's computer individually. And I'm going to show you how to do that so that if you want to give that report a try, you can go for it. So we're going to jump into CAD, and I'm going to show you how to change that default vehicle tracking report. So jump over to my CAD screen here, and we are going to begin just with a new drawing created using our design template. So I'm going to do a new using the MD. And this is pretty simple to do. You're going to go to the Vehicle Tracking tab in the ribbon, and then you're going to open the Vehicle Library Explorer, which is the button right here. It's a truck with a book, so Vehicle Library. Click on that. It'll bring up the Vehicle Library Explorer dialog box. Within this dialog box, you can see all of the various design vehicles available to us, which there are tons and tons of libraries of them. And then you can see previews of those vehicles on the window on the right side, which can help making your selection easier. But for right now, we're just going to show how to import a new one. I already have the CAD buses on my computer, but if you don't, what you're going to do is you're going to go to File, you're going to go to Open Library. The custom file is located on S, Design, Pantera CAD Standards, Vehicle Tracking, Reports, or no, sorry, not Reports, PTE Custom, and then cadabuses.atl. You open that up. My computer says it's already open because I already have it imported. But when you open it, it should pop this folder into your library. And when you open that, you should see the 3 buses. And when you click on them, you see the previews of how they're going to look and all of their properties. Now, after you do this one time, it should stay in your vehicle library even after you close CAD and reopen. If it doesn't, you can repeat the process of importing it again. There are also instructions located on the shared Google Drive for how to do this if you ever do need to do it again and can't remember how to do it. So you can keep that in mind. So we'll jump back to the presentation slides. Okay, so now that we kind of got a lot of that background stuff out of the way, we're going to jump into how to actually draw a movement. And actually, I'm going to go off script a little bit because I think one of my slides is missing. We talked about reports and how we can make the colors red and blue in the default. I want to show you how to make your default that way, or how to change your default if you have something else that you like more. So we're going to jump in and do that real quick. So I'm going to jump back to the CAD window. Sorry, we're bouncing around a little bit here, but I'm going to use a sample file that includes the report that I want to make my default. I have one of these saved on the S drive for anyone who wants to use the colored version that is red moving forward and blue moving backwards. So I'm going to go ahead and open that file. It is located on S, Design, Pantera CAD Standards, Vehicle Tracking, Reports, and then there's a CAD file. So we're going to open that up. It is just a template drawing that has a movement in it that has that style. All we're going to do is copy that movement with a base point, paste it into a new drawing, or it could be a drawing that you already are working in, like an MD that has a layout. I'm going to use a new drawing for mine. I'm going to paste it in anywhere, doesn't matter. We just need to add it to the drawing so it carries the settings for the report in. So when you bring it in, it should show up red and blue the way you want it to. Next step, we're going to go to the Vehicle Tracking tab on the ribbon. Then we are going to open the report wizard. That is the one that looks like a piece of paper with a wrench. So we're going to open that up, and you should see a drop down that has a listing of reports. Within that, hopefully you're seeing Report 6 PTE Turning Templates Color Visible. If so, select that report, then click the Advanced button. Then you're going to select that Report 6 PTE Turning Templates Color again and hit Make Default. Then you click OK and Finish. And now moving forward, when we create our first turning movement, it should utilize that style. One thing to note, if you are using a drawing that already has turning movements in it, you cannot apply that report to an existing movement. It only works with new ones after you change the setting. So that's kind of an annoying thing, but it is normal. So if you run into that, that's why. Okay, so now we're going to jump back to these slides real quick. We're going to talk about how to draw a turning movement. So to do turning movements, the primary tool we use is called Auto Drive Arc. There's a few different tools within vehicle tracking that you can use. There's Auto Drive Arc, Auto Drive Bearings with a bunch of preset angles. What I've found is using Auto Drive Arc gives you the ability to apply the settings of any of those other ones. So I'd rather just use the same tool and tweak it if I have to, than have to remember what every single one of those tools does. So I use Auto Drive Arc. There are a few extra kind of add-on settings you can use with it. Those would be turning on to bearings and through angles. So what that allows you to do is if you are going down a street and you need to make a 90-degree turn into a site, you can tell it, I want to turn 90 degrees, and it will only allow you to turn 90 degrees where you specify. So depending on what you're doing, it can make the movements a little bit quicker to create. You can also add exit overturn and side overturn, which may help you turn a little bit tighter, but it could involve the truck or whatever vehicle swinging into one of the other lanes of traffic. So can sometimes come in handy, sometimes not. I usually try it depending on the situation to see what it does. There's also turn on spot. What this does is makes it like the vehicle is sitting still, you turn the steering wheel, and then you move. It's basically negating the time it takes to turn the wheel as you're moving, so it allows it to turn sharper. I really don't use this other than if I'm changing directions. Sometimes I will. So if I, pull forward into a spot and I'm going to make a K turn or something, I'll use turn on spot a lot for that because it allows them to turn a little bit sharper. Let's see. Okay, and then some helpful hints, and I'm going to show this, but as you're doing movements, you can use the L key as kind of an undo. And then when I do movements, I also always have the O snaps turned off. Otherwise, it kind of messes them up and they jump all over the place. And then you also have the ability to edit existing vehicle tracking paths or pick up where you left off if you need to quit and adjust something in the middle of doing one. Those are useful. I don't think everyone always knows about that, and then they end up deleting and starting over or think they've gone too far and they can't go back. So, okay, so let's go ahead and try to draw a turning movement. So I'm going to jump back into my CAD window, which hopefully you can see. Yep. And I'm going to open the sample file located on the S drive. It is called 2025-05-vehicle tracking. So I'm going to grab that file. And I'm going to go ahead and make my first vehicle turning movement path. So I'm going to open the vehicle tracking tab on the ribbon right here. I already have it. And I'm going to click Auto Drive Arc. So it is an arc with a steering wheel. I click on that and it brings up the Vehicle Library Explorer. This is where I'm going to select the vehicle that I want to use. There are several. Obviously, I said the CAD buses are located in the custom folder after you bring it in. The delivery vehicles are all under US design vehicles, and then you go to statewide AASHTO, and then AASHTO 2011, and you can see all of these. So I'm going to do a movement with a 30-foot box truck. And before I select that, if you're having trouble finding a specific vehicle, but you know the name of it, you can also type it in the search box and it should pop up. So once you have the vehicle you want, you double click on it. Your CAD will probably bring up this default vehicle pop-up. You can either hit don't ask me this again and hit no, or just hit no every time. But if you click yes for this, you will no longer be prompted for the Vehicle Library Explorer when you go to do a movement. And you'll have to go through a different menu to get to it to change vehicles. I always say no because I don't want to have to go through multiple menus to change a setting before I do a movement. I would rather just pick the vehicle each time I do a movement. It gives me a little bit more freedom, and I'm not jumping in and out of menus quite as often. So I'm going to hit no. Then it brings up some drawing settings. You shouldn't need to change these. If you ever do a turning movement path and it looks significantly off in terms of scale, then something might have got messed up in here. But generally, I just click OK. And now you can see in my crosshairs is the body of the vehicle. So I go ahead and I turn my O-snaps off and I figure out where I want to start. So for this, I think I'm going to start on the street Eagle Point, and I need to click where I want the movement to start. So I'm just going to click here. The next step is to set the vehicle's rotation. So you can see as I move my mouse, it's moving. I'm going to put it roughly parallel to the direction of travel, like that, and click again. And now you see the vehicle turn red. I see the name of the vehicle. The position is now set. It brings up position vehicle dialog box. I already set it where I want it, so I'm just going to click proceed. And now I can start to do my movement. You'll notice if you move your mouse around, it locks your vehicle to certain turning radius, so you know it's working. It also brings up the auto drive dialog box in the top left. This is where you can get some of the settings that I mentioned earlier, and we're going to look at those here in a minute. So before we get into that, the way this works generally then is you just start clicking where you want the vehicle to go. So I could click some points along my path. Maybe I want it to do this. Pull into the site. And you can add as many points as you want to get your vehicle around your site. When you're done, you just finish the command with enter or right click, depending on how you have your CAD set up. And you can see the movement is in red now, meaning I'm going forward. It puts an outline and the name of the vehicle at the beginning and the end of the path. And we can tweak some of that later, but that would be your first turning movement path. So you have that. Now we're going to dive into some of these settings a little bit. So I'm going to make another path. So I'm going to click my auto drive arc. I'm going to use the box truck again. This time, maybe we'll start in the site somewhere. We'll start in the loading space. And we'll position the truck. And click proceed to lock in our position. And we're back into our auto drive dialog box. First thing I want to show you is how to turn onto a bearing. So if you go into the dialog box and you check turn on to bearing, the vehicle starts to behave differently when you move the mouse around. What I like to do after I click turn on to bearing, I don't like the freehand. I like to do turn through angle, and then you can specify what angle you want. Most likely when I do this, I'm doing a 90, and it could be for entering a driveway a lot of times, or if you're navigating a parking lot that's all 90-degree turns, I can do it that way or use it for that. Can kind of make things easier, especially if you're on a site where you know you have a lot of room for that vehicle to run. It just makes it a little bit quicker. The other thing you can do is you can see what side overturn and exit overturn does. So if I check side overturn, now you can see that the vehicle is turning out before it turns to the right. If I do exit overturn, it overruns the curve a little bit and actually turns itself further than you want it to, kind of overcorrects a little bit. So these are both things that can sometimes come in handy, sometimes not. They're usually worth trying if you're having trouble. You can also use both at the same time if you want to. There you can see in that case when I added the side overturn, now I'm not jumping the curb anymore whenever I make that. So those are options you can do. You can also do turn on spot. So I'm going to turn off the bearing. So now I'm just back to my normal default behavior. I'm going to click turn on spot here in a second. But before I do, you can see how tight this vehicle turns right now. If I click turn on spot, it's even tighter, and you can really see it in the body lines here at the beginning of the movement. So as opposed to here whenever it's not turned on. And it also really makes a difference if you're already into a movement and you're going. It takes the vehicle time for the wheel to turn. So if I do this right now, turn on spot's not on. Now it is, and look at how fast it can turn the other way. It makes a big difference, but you want to make sure you're using it realistically. So if this vehicle is driving through this parking lot, he's not going to stop, turn his wheel all the way the other direction, and then start moving again. So you don't want to abuse the ability to use that command, but it is really handy, especially if you're changing directions as far as forward and reverse, because I have to stop anyway. So that's that. And then the last two things for this is the tips for the undo, basically. So as you're drawing, you can click a few points to add positions for your vehicle. And if you want to go back to a certain spot, you just hit L and then enter, and it'll start undoing your clicks. And then you can just pick up where you left off if you want to. And then when you're done, exit out of the command. The other thing you can do, I'm going to delete this one. Let's say I already have this movement on the site and I want to continue it now and go maybe around this drive aisle. All I need to do is select the movement and then click Auto Drive Arc again. And I can keep that movement going. So now that I've done that, I'm going to turn through a 90-degree angle and we'll make a left over here. And I can do that. And then I can do that again to navigate around the fuel island. So that's just an example of how those work. They're really useful. It used to be that you always were deleting movements and starting over if something didn't work. It was like every mouse click could mean completely redoing it, which was kind of not so fun. So this is quite a bit better. So that's how you do your initial turning movement. We're going to jump back into the presentation slides. And we are going to talk about how to add a profile of a design vehicle and how to add body outlines along the path of a movement. So a lot of times when we do these exhibits, or even if it's on a plan, we want to show what vehicle we're using. And the easiest way that I've found at least to do that is to add a profile of it. The software can do that automatically. So I'm going to jump back into CAD. the way it works, you need to have your vehicle movement or a vehicle movement for the vehicle you want to use already in your drawing, because the profile is directly tied to that. What that also means is if you delete that movement for some reason, the profile will also be deleted. So sometimes what I do, if I have a drawing that has several turning movements, is I will just put a dummy movement near wherever I want my profile to be and tie the profile to that. That way, if I purposefully delete one of the movements that are on the site, I won't accidentally be deleting my profile. So that's just kind of a tip that it's bit me before. You go to print your exhibit and the profile's gone, you can't figure out why. Oh, it's because I redid that movement to make it work better and I forgot that it was tied to the profile. So keep that in mind. But the way you do it, you select the movement that you want to make a profile for. Then you make sure you go to your vehicle tracking tab in the ribbon and you click this Insert Profile button, which is basically the profile view of a truck with a dimension under it. So we're going to click on that, and then it prompts you for a location. I'm going to put it just off in space for right now, but I usually put it somewhere near the legends. And you can see it inserts it in world, but it gives you the name of the truck, your length, your width, body height, minimum body ground clearance, track width, lock to lock time, and maximum steering angle. Just kind of a quick note, I talked earlier about the turn on spot setting, and basically what that is doing is eliminating the lock to lock time when you draw the movements. So what that means is if you have the steering wheel turned the entire way to the left, the software assumes it takes you 5 seconds to turn it all the way to the right as you're moving the vehicle. So if you have turn on spot, it makes that time 0, and you essentially just went all the way to the left, all the way to the left to all the way to the right in no time. So that's how that works. There's your profile. You can throw that, you can viewport it into a sheet just like anything else. The other thing I want to show you how to do is add a vehicle outline to a path. So again, you have to have a movement in the drawing. You select it, then you go to your vehicle tracking tab in the ribbon, and you are looking for the Place Outline button. It's a square with 2 dashed arcs, one on either side of it. So we're going to click it. And then you can just mouse along the path where you want to click them. And it's actually kind of neat to use, even if you don't add it, as a way to kind of visualize what a vehicle might be doing on your turning movement. But if you want to place one, which often I do on turns, you just click wherever you want it to be. You can put them every so often. If you put one down and then decide later you don't want it there, you zoom into it, and if you click on top of it again, it'll remove it. So I'll remove this one too. And then you can just keep going. So that's how you do that. It's really useful, especially if you're preparing some kind of an exhibit. Just makes it neater than only showing the beginning and the end. And having the ability to control where you put it is definitely nice too. So that's all of that. And I believe that's all I have on vehicle tracking for right now. So we're going to jump into what's new in Civil 3D 2026. And we're just kind of going to touch on some of these. Because there are a few bigger features, I would say. One in particular, the drainage analysis, that I haven't really had much time to play with yet. And I know it also uses some features that we don't currently take advantage of. So as they continue to develop it, I'm sure we'll keep an eye on it and kind of play with it a little bit as it becomes more fleshed out. But we'll kind of talk through these a little bit. So essentially, the first one we'll hit on is the model viewer. And the model viewer is kind of like the old object viewer, if anyone's ever used that. What it allows you to do is visualize in 3D your civil 3D objects. So you can see pipe networks in 3D, you can see surfaces in 3D, several different things. It's a really neat way to visualize what's going on your site. So I'm going to go and give you a little demo of it. I didn't do a sample file for this just because I'm really just showing the feature. There's not really anything to walk through, and you'll see that here in a second while I wait for my drawing to open here in the other window. So the model viewer is something I've been using a decent amount. It works really well. It's pretty smooth. Yeah, I know a few other people have tried it and seem to like it, especially if you have trouble visualizing what a surface does, for example, just from the contours. It lets you see it kind of as a 3D mesh, and it's pretty cool. So now that that's loaded up, let's jump back over to CAD. This is a file for Top Trees West project, and I grabbed it because it has pipe networks and some pretty big surfaces in it, and some corridors and things like that. So you can add pretty much any Civil 3D object to the model viewer. The way you do it, you select the first thing. So I'm going to select this proposed surface. Then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say add to model viewer. Now on my screen it opens on the other monitor, so I'm going to drag it in. And what you will probably see the first time you do it is a black screen with nothing in it. The reason for that is that this being a new feature, our styles aren't necessarily set up for it in all of our drawings. So to fix that, since I'm trying to show a surface, I'm going to drag that out of the way real quick. You would go to Surface Properties and edit your style. And then under View Direction in the Display tab, you want to go to Model. This is something that we never really used before because it didn't do much, frankly. But now that it does this, you want to turn on triangles, and that'll allow the 3D to show up within the viewer. So now I'm going to drag the model viewer back into the window so you guys can see it. And now you can see 3D kind of rendering of your surface. So you have some basins here. You can see the parking, which if anyone's been out on the site is terraced. So in this one, I kind of got a little overboard with it. You can see the steps. You can see the cut for the building, or roughly what it would be. Up here's the roundabout. You can see the curbs, where the sidewalks cut through the medians. All that stuff, depending on how good your surface is, it helps you visualize it. Even down here along the main road, you can see the kind of the boulevard, the median, the tapers for the turning lanes. You can see the big head walls for the culvert pipe. So it's really nice for visualizing. The other thing that it allows you to do, I'm going to maximize it, is you can add objects as you go, and you can leave this open all the time in the background or on your second screen. So if I wanted to add objects to it, I would go to the Objects panel and click Add Objects, and it'll bring me back into my CAD window, and then I could click on individual things like a pipe or an inlet box or something like that. In this case, what I want to do, I'm going to actually get it out of the way again. I'm going to add an entire network to it. So within my CAD window, I'm going to go into Tool Space, bring up some pipe networks. I'm going to select an entire network, and I'm going to add the model viewer, and then I'll select the sanitary too. And I'll add that to the model viewer as well. And while I'm at it, maybe I'll add a corridor. So I can select a corridor, right click, and I can add that to the model viewer too. So now I'll bring the model viewer back over for you. And now you can see all of the inlet boxes. They're a little bit hard to see. So you can also control the visibility over here. So I can turn the surface off. And now you can see my pipe networks. So you can see all of the inlets, you can see all of the pipes. They're being displayed as the correct size at the correct scale. You can see these are oversized boxes as opposed to 2x4s. You can also see sanitary versus storm. So here are the sanitary manholes and mains compared to the storm sewer under the street. I also added a corridor, so you can see my corridor. You can see the, find a good place to look at it. You can see the curbs on the corridor. There must be an inlet over there. So you can see how all that stuff works. Then you can also see your surface. You can see if any pipes are sticking out of the ground, which thankfully they're not. But this is just a really cool tool as a way to visualize things. I like it a lot. You can keep it open all the time on your second monitor if you want to. I usually don't, just because I have other toolbars on my second monitor, but I like to open it up as I'm working through things so I can see what I'm doing and kind of where my surface stands. I use it mostly for surfaces. So that's the model viewer. Jump back into the slides. They also gave you the ability to add boundaries to shortcut or data shortcut surfaces. So if anyone's ever added a surface to a drawing via data shortcut, you know that it adds the entire surface exactly as it was in the source drawing. You now have the ability to add a boundary to only show the area you want. So where I could see this really coming in handy is if you have a really large site, like this Toff Trees site is a couple hundred acres. But if I'm doing plan sheets, like a grading plan or something, where I only want to see maybe a couple acres of it or something, I can throw a boundary over the surface. So I'm not going to show how to do it because it's the exact same way you add a boundary to a normal surface. I can show you where it would be. So let me grab a drawing that has a data shortcut in it. Okay. Okay, so now you can see my CAD window. This project is one where I had to do enlargements for the grading plans at either 5 or 10 scale. And rather than clutter up my MD with all of these spots and slopes, what I did was I data shortcutted the surfaces into the plan sheet and did all of the spots there. This can be a good way to do it if you have a project that has a lot of enlargements or something like that, but you do need to be careful with it because if you need to send a CAD file out, for example, and you forget to add all of these spots and slopes, then whoever you're sending it to isn't getting all of the design information they need. So you have to be really conscious of that if you're going to use this. But the reason I open it is because it has some data shortcuts in it. So the surface is in here. If I expand it, there is only one currently, and it's proposed. And you can see it has the little shortcut icon. Now, whenever you expand that, there is a reference boundary in the definition. And if I wanted to add a reference boundary, I'm just going to draw a quick polyline. Let's say I want to use that polyline as the boundary for the surface. All I have to do is right-click on reference boundaries and click Add, and then click my polyline, and then I can synchronize the surface. It should update reference surface. That's the one I want. And you can see it applied the boundary. I can also drag the boundary out. I can update that again, and it fills it out further. It's a good way to speed up a drawing if you have a giant reference surface in there, but you don't need all of it. So I would give that a shot if you have any drawings that are in that situation. it could definitely save you some headaches and a lot of time waiting for things to open and close and load. So that's reference surface boundaries. And then the drainage analysis, which I talked a little bit about, is a new feature that I haven't really tried yet too much. I'll show you where it is, but we're not going to really get into it too much. So I'm going to go back to this. Actually, I'm going to make a new drawing from the template. And if you go to your Home tab, there are some new tools. There's a pond tool, which allows you to create basins. There's an underground storage tool for underground basins. And then there's creating channel tools, which I think is swales, I believe. So Civil 3D now has the ability to create those objects and actually import rainfall data and basically pass flows through those basins. You can connect it to your storm sewer pipe networks and route the pipe network through the basin. And it'll give you hydrographs. It'll give you your hydraulic grade line on your storm profiles that you draw. You can upsize your pipes and have it recalculate and see how it changes things. It does a lot of some similar things that HydroFlow does, but you definitely need to do more upfront within CAD to make it work. I could see maybe eventually if we start using it, maybe we'd have the ability to take the drainage maps that our environmental department already makes and use those to create intelligent catchment areas that are then being used for the calculations within Civil 3D. I think there's a lot of potential for it. I haven't tried it, so I don't know if it's really kind of ready for prime time yet, but it's something to look out for. Seems like a really cool feature and something that they're working on. So those are all of the new major features in Civil 3D 2026 as far as I can tell. As more become available, I'm sure you'll be getting emails and seeing things about them. If anybody tries any of them and it works well for them, or if it doesn't work well for them, let us know. Be curious how it goes. With that, I believe that is all I had for today. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute or throw them in the chat. I did see one a little bit ago. So John is having an issue where the report didn't show up in the wizard for him. I don't know if anybody else had that issue. If you did, we can look at your individual computer and see what that was. It should have shown up if you pasted the sample path into your drawing, and then after it was pasted, you went into the report wizard. But we can check that out. I'll follow up with you, John, on that one. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, anything like that? I'll give you a second. And while anyone is typing, if you have anything, I believe the next CAD training is actually not a CAD training, it's a concept discussion about doing house site plans. So we'll have that to look forward to, I believe, later this month. So look forward to that. And then I believe the one in July is also a concept discussion about grading, which should be really good too. Kind of get out from behind the computers for both of those a little bit and learn more of the concept level things. It's really important, so you can look forward to those. Not seeing any other questions or comments in the chat, or haven't heard anybody on mute at least. I think we'll call it there. So thank you everybody for joining. Again, this will be posted to YouTube if you want to refer to it later. And yeah, thank you.